it does exist for you. You're just not on that timeline. You're not in alignment with it. When we look at somebody else who has something that we want and we apply the law of divine oneness, it's like, actually, if they can have it, I can have it. Furthermore, I do already have it. I'm just not living out that timeline in this current moment right now in this state of consciousness.
Welcome to the Mindful Method podcast, where we don't just fill your ears, we fill your mind with the tools to enhance your emotional and physical reality. I'm your host, Jordana Sade, here to guide you on this journey of the body-brain connection and help you take your power back to create the life you've always wanted. So grab a seat, because class is in session and our method is on the syllabus. Here at the Mindful Clinic, we're not just changing your mind, we're changing your life. One mindful moment at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Method podcast. It's me, and today we're going to be talking about the 12 universal laws and how we can use them to literally create the life of our dreams. Like, these are intrinsic laws that have been passed down for centuries and centuries. Like, these are some of the oldest, theoretical energetic practices that exist. And, I think they exist for a reason. There are so many things that we have passed down that kind of have like a negative connotation to it. So for example, astrology. And I know that it's like this basic bitch thing, but when it really comes down to it, like, astrology is science. There is a moon, there are planets, they are in different places of the sky. The moon governs the water and the tides. We are 70% water. Like, of course the shit is going to affect us. It is just as valid in my mind as any other science that we can measure, we can retest. Like, it's literal empirical data. Yeah. So the 12 universal laws, some of them you probably have heard of, some of them maybe not so much, but we're going to talk about all 12 of them today. And I'm so excited to bring this episode to you guys, because when I started making the Mindful Money course, which is like a new project of mine, I'm obsessed with it. I literally want to take the course myself. I got really, really knees deep in the universal laws and how we can use them. Because, for example, the law of attraction is really popular. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people use the law of attraction, but it is not the only law. There are 12 of them. And we can actually use all of these interchangeably to create the life of our dreams. But, this is the Mindful Method podcast. I do work a lot with the body and the mind connection and how to create the body of your dreams. So I'm obviously, of course, going to tell you how to relate it to creating your dream body and the health that you desire. And so let's just fucking go. Let's get into it. All right. So the 12 universal laws are these intrinsic, unchangeable laws. And it started from ancient cultures. So typically the Egyptians is where these were passed down, like through hieroglyphics. And there's a bunch of other philosophers that have touched on a lot of these. So if you're following me up until this point, let's open our minds. And because truly, if we don't open our mind enough to be able to change it, then you are just going to stay exactly where you are. Like, that is one thing for certain. So the first law is the law of divine oneness. Now, how this is explained is this is the most foundational law. And this law essentially says that the universe is a law of divine oneness. So every single thing in the universe is interconnected. I just actually saw, it was on a reel, but it was looking under a microscope on somebody who had been cremated, and it literally looks like galaxies of stars, because we are made of stars. And I know that you hear people say these things in songs, but the truth is, like, when we actually break it down, we're all just made of molecules. And the way that the planets were created were from stars that exploded, and then all of those dusts like collect together and orbit, the sun forms, and we orbit it, and then we literally come from that, right? So everything is interconnected. It's said to be that beyond our senses, beyond every thought or action, an event is in some way connected to everything and everyone else. And I think that we can really see this show up in our life when we start to realize these like weird serendipitous things. I met somebody recently, and it was like a total 6 degrees of separation situation. But anyways, I met him, and he was actually dating somebody else. And I was also seeing somebody else. And when I mentioned to the other guy that I was seeing, this guy that I went on a date with and who he was seeing, he was like, oh my God, I know her. And it was just like this crazy, weird 6 degree of separation. The other thing is, obviously, you know that I'm like really big into angel numbers. And so I'll be like walking along and like huffing and puffing, having a really bad day. And I'll see like 777 or 555 or 888. And I'm like, okay, like I feel, it genuinely makes me feel better. And we're going to get into like how we kind of attract that stuff. But the law of divine oneness is essentially saying that if we are all interconnected, if we are all one, we then can see ourselves in other people. And so, you know, it is a little bit conflicting, because I think if I think about my life and my situation, and I think about somebody who lives in Africa, let's say, like I don't feel necessarily fully connected to them. But whether you believe in Adam and Eve, or you believe in biology or evolution, literally we all came from the same thing. We all came from like a molecule, right? And so we are all interconnected. And so this law of divine oneness really kind of poses and encourages us to develop compassion for the people around us, because we can see ourselves in other people. This one is really, really important for me. And if you're listening, hopefully you too, because I think it becomes really easy to get into this like really judgmental place with people. We're walking around fucking criticizing everybody. And the problem with that is that if the narrative is critical and the narrative is judgment, then we are really in our ego. And that criticism and that judgment is only like a dip, or a dip in the sand, our toes in the sand. It's like the tip of the fingernail or something, compared to the criticism and the judgment that we give ourselves, you know? And so I actually have my clients do this exercise all the time, where my clients like, I don't really judge people, I don't criticize. And I'm like, walk around and listen to the very first thought you have. I guarantee you it's a critical one. And so when we use the law of oneness rather than judging each other, because that's what this creates, it creates this separateness. And separateness is actually what makes us feel like we don't fit in. And if we don't feel like we fit in, or if we feel like there's constant criticism, whether it's from our own narrative or the expectation that somebody else is criticizing us, then we are always going to feel like there is something wrong with us. So that's one part. The second part is we can use the law of divine oneness in a more positive way, where if there's somebody who has something we want and we feel like we're not good enough to have it, or like they can have it, but I can't. I see this all the time when new clients start. I just had a conversation with a fairly new client on an MFM call, and she was like, well, I'm always going to be big. I'm always going to have to restrict. I'm always going to have to punish. And I'm like, why? Are you human? Am I human? If I can release the weight and be in like the best shape of my life without dieting, without over exercising, by genuinely just changing my thoughts about myself, like, why can't you? So because the narrative there, the narrative that that individual came to me with was that separateness. And that separateness is actually, it's very ego driven, because the ego is obsessed with desire. And when we're in a state of desire, we're not in a state of having, you know? And so when we're in that state of separateness, like we can never actually fully be whole. We can never be healed. We can never expect ourselves to achieve and receive the things that we desire. We're going to be in this constant state of like wanting, wanting, wanting. And as long as we're in a state of wanting, we're never in a state of having. And as we know, and this is another universal law, but we always manifest and experience what we are, not what we want. And so it's very, very important that when we can use this law of divine oneness to look around and realize that every single person is a projection and a mirror to us. And oftentimes when we are looking at somebody else and being like, oh, like she has the car that I want, or the body that I want, or the boyfriend that I want, or whatever it is, it's not that she gets it and I don't. We're eliminating the separateness and we're going, oh my gosh, like if that is humanly capable and I'm a human, how can I use this law of divine oneness to be able to experience that? I'm going to get into like a really very basic quantum physics situation here. So quantum physics states that literally every single thing exists at all times. So every single timeline exists at all times. So in another timeline, it exists that like I am married to a 70-year-old and inheriting his money or something. That's not that that's a desire of mine, but like if you think about all the things that you desire, those desires were given to you because the universe genuinely expects you to be able to receive them. And so if you're on a timeline right now where you're not receiving the thing that you want or desire, it does exist for you. You're just not on that timeline. You're not in alignment with it. And so when we look at somebody else who has something that we want and we apply the law of divine oneness, it's like, actually, if they can have it, I can have it. And even furthermore, I do already have it. I'm just not living out that timeline in this current moment right now in this state of consciousness. But we can change that. We can like quantum leap, my friends. Okay. So that's the law of divine oneness. The second law is the law of vibration. And the law of vibration is one of my favorites. Bob Proctor talks a lot about the law of vibration. The law of vibration basically works on frequency and says that every single thing has a frequency. I know a lot of people who meet me say that like I have this really, really big frequency or it's very magnetic. And like, trust me, it was not always that way. But, you know, there's a frequency that exists within this chair that I'm sitting on. Every single individual has a frequency. There's a frequency for every emotion, for every chakra, for every state of being. There's a frequency for the lights over there. Like everything has a frequency. And so if we look at a microscopic level, everything is in constant motion. And so this concept, the law of frequency, states that if we look at a microscopic level, every single thing, every single molecule is actually in motion, vibrating. And that vibration creates a frequency. And so think about, you know, if you're somebody who listens to frequencies, it's like 432 hertz, 536 hertz, 972 hertz. I'm like, that's the frequency of love, and that's the frequency of God, and that's the frequency of whatever. But like literally, not even just with sounds, with our every single thing that exists is vibrating, and that vibration has a frequency. And this applies to matter, but also to your own personal frequency, your emotions. And this law states that our vibrational frequency can inform our lived experience. It's kind of huge, okay? This is kind of huge. So I'm going to explain what this might look like. It might look like you are able to receive money really easily, but you cannot hold on to it. And that's because you are not a vibrational match for having money in the bank. Now, of course, from a psychological perspective, or even if we look at Gay Hendricks, like upper limit theory, a lot of that has to do with our conditioning, what we learned, et cetera, how we feel about ourselves, our self-value. But also, if we don't want to have to like deal with any of that stuff, or like, you know, we've already done some of that work and we're still not getting the thing that we want to work with frequency. How can we be in a vibrational state of somebody who has that money in the bank, who has that car, who has that body that you want? So some of the ways that we can actually raise our frequency, like we can do this from somatic practices by genuinely listening to frequencies. Listening to music in general actually can raise our vibrational frequency, but also things like sound baths, yoga, chakra work. I actually have a journal prompt or an affirmation that I do, and I'm like, I am a vibrational match for XYZ. I am a vibrational match for a TED Talk. I am a vibrational match for a partner. I am a vibrational match for $1 million. I'm a vibrational match for a Jeep. Like literally, I do this with everything that I want. And eventually, when we believe it enough and we tell our bodies enough, our cells will start to vibrate at a different frequency, because every single fucking cell in your body, like what is it governed by? Especially the body. Like we can't, I don't know if I can personally raise the frequency of this microphone. I mean, if I were to turn the dial, maybe, but, or like the frequency of that couch. But the only thing that we are in control of is our own energy and our own fucking body. And what governs that? Well, it's the nervous system. And what governs the nervous system are thoughts and feelings. And so you can literally change your vibrational frequency right now by telling every cell in your body what the fuck you want it to do. It's the best, and it's so easy. And I give this to my clients all the time. I'm like, just tell your cells, I'm a fat burning machine. Just tell your cells, release and let go of whatever you don't need. I'm a vibrational match for 145 pounds. I'm a vibrational match for jean shorts. I'm a vibrational match for like whatever, a bikini, whatever you want. You can literally tell the cells in your body because there is nothing and nobody else governing your own frequency and your own body but yourself. So like, let's take that with stride and become empowered with that.
Hi, babes. I am so excited to talk to you about my signature program, the Mindful Method. This is the exact same method that I have been using with hundreds of successful clients to help you heal your relationship to food, to increase confidence, and to lose weight without dieting or killing yourself at the gym. If you're sick of not feeling like your best self, if you're sick of promising yourself that you'll start again on Monday, if you're sick of going on restrictive diets only to gain back the weight, I can tell you right now that if you gained it back, it did not work. You know what's healthy and what's not. You do. You just continue to choose the unhealthy option anyways. And a meal plan will not solve this issue. There is no amount of restriction or discipline or willpower that is going to stop you from self-sabotaging. The body follows the mind. Imagine a life where you don't have to think about what you can or can't eat. Imagine a life where you feel confident in all of your clothes, where every day and every way your body rebalances and you lose all of the weight so you find the truest, healthiest version of yourself. Imagine never having to start again on Monday. This is what happens when you focus on transforming the brain so weight loss is effortless. The body follows the mind, and it's time you actually get to the root cause of your issue. If you are ready to transform and find the truest, healthiest version of you without letting go of your favorite foods, I invite you to fill out the application in my bio. And if you're a good fit, we'll be in touch soon. Back to regular programming.
The third law is the law of correspondence. And this law essentially states that everything that happens to us is a mirror for what is going on inside. Think about like what is above is below. It's all in correspondence to something else that's happening. And so it's like on a personal level, our reality is genuinely a mirror for what is happening inside of us. So I had a client who has a crush on a guy at work. And these are the things we talk about, by the way. And, you know, she is so frustrated because he is going back to his ex-girlfriend and she's like, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. I just feel like I'm not enough. And I'm like, you literally manifested a male who will continually make decisions that you are interpreting as I'm not enough because you believe that you're not enough. It's not he thinks you're not enough. He is just a mirror for what your beliefs are about yourself. Like if he walked up to her and he'd be like, you're blue, she'd be like, that doesn't resonate at all. Like that does not resonate. I'm not blue. But as soon as he doesn't pay attention to her or, you know, goes on a trip with his ex-girlfriend or whatever it is, like the internal dialogue is I'm not enough, but that's the dialogue that she's walking around with all the time. So the way to actually shift this is to work on how you think and feel about yourselves, and then you'll attract different situations. And actually, I have a personal story with this. It's about dating. But I was working really hard on really trying to heal my own masculine energy and not being the wounded masculine and like trusting my masculine energy to like protect and provide and hold me. Like, I don't need anyone. I got it myself, but like not in a wounded way, in a genuine, like, it's okay, I'm safe, you know? That even I finally tapped into it. I was like, I finally fucking got it. I practiced it all day, just like a muscle. And then that evening I went on a date with somebody, and I have never in my life had that type of treatment. The way that he was looking at me, speaking to me, talking to me, holding me, just paying attention to me and affirming back to me the things that I desire about myself, or the things that I would want somebody to think and say and touch the way that I would want to be touched. It was crazy. It was so on par. And it wasn't because he's the right person for me, because I can tell you right now, didn't work out. He's not. But it's because I showed up in that energy of like, I've already got protection. I am already held. And so he can only mirror back what I have inside. And why this is significant is because, you know, I've been on fucking so many dates since my separation, but in every single date that I've been on, and if you're listening to this and you've dated me, I'm very sorry, but on every single date that I've been on, I kind of sit there for a moment and I feel like I want something. I feel like I want him to touch my leg, or I feel like I want him to ask me a question about me and not just talk about him, or I feel like I want attention or an affirmation, or I feel like I want a bite of food or whatever it is. I want a drink. And I'm always kind of sitting in this place of wanting and like not getting what I need. And this was the very first time that I went on a date with a masculine man who genuinely, before I could even want, was already giving it to me. And again, I cannot stress enough, it is not because he's the right person for me. It's because I walked in there being like, I've already got it. Like, I already have everything. So he literally mirrored that back to me based on my frequency, based on the law of correspondence, based on the law of oneness. Like, we are one, right? So we can feel into that. From a psychological perspective, we call these mirror neurons. And so we are literally sending out these like mirror neurons all the time. We just like aren't aware of it. And so if we're walking around being like, like I don't feel appreciated in this moment, or like he doesn't think I'm pretty, or I wonder if my hair looks a certain way, and we're like criticizing ourselves, then we're only going to get that back. And they might not say it out loud, and they might not even be thinking about it, but because you're thinking about it, you're not attracting the situation that you want, which would be like, I want to be told I'm pretty. I want my hand to be held. I'd like a kiss at this moment. You get what I mean. So with this law of correspondence, if everything in our life is chaotic and fearful and stressful, it's because internally you are chaotic and fearful and stressful. Yeah. And so really it's not about I need to quit this job, and in fact we very rarely need to change the external circumstances. You really want to start with you and your own energy. And when you can start to feel safe within your body, when you can start to feel regulate your nervous system and not be stressed out all the time, literally everything around you changes, and you can save yourself like going from job to job, or from boyfriend to boyfriend, or remodeling your house a million times so you can find that happiness and peace within yourself. So I love the law of correspondence, and it is similar to some of the others we'll talk about. So I'm going to move on. The fourth law, which is for sure the most popular, it's used in manifestation all the time, is the law of attraction. If you have not read the law of attraction or The Secret, you can do so now, or you can just listen to me. But the law of attraction is essentially just like attracts like. Very similar to the law of vibration, where you must be in a vibrational state that matches the frequency of the thing that you want. The law of attraction is really about where our energy goes, where our attention goes, what we focus on brings that back to us. Yeah. And so if you've ever wanted a red car and then all of a sudden you fucking see red Jeeps everywhere, if you want a red Jeep or whatever it is, it like attracts like you put your attention there. So there is a filter in the brain, and it's called the reticular activating system, or RAS. And this reticular activating system is essentially filtering in and out information that is important to us. Honestly, if you remembered every single thing with every, like when we look at something, we take in all that information, and it's so much information that the brain has to distinguish between what's important and what's not. I remember reading this study in very early, like intro to psychology, like one of my first years, but I found it so interesting, where it was an example where they had two people witness a car crash. And when they took the accounts of the two people who witnessed the car crash, they both noticed completely different things. Like one person was like, it's a red car. The other person was like, there's a tree over there. But like not a single person recognized the license plate. And that's because like the brain didn't filter that information in and didn't think it was important. Now, if you're somebody like me and you're looking at license plates all the fucking time because you're like, angels, give me a sign, give me 333-666. I personally might have recognized the license plate, but I might not have recognized if there was a tree in the corner, right? And so that's because I have told my brain that one thing is important, and that is to look at the numbers of license plates, or I want a red Jeep, and therefore where my attention goes, energy flows, and I am literally filtering in all of the red Jeeps, and that reinforces that if I see them everywhere, that I can have them. It's like, if you've never, ever, ever seen a Lamborghini in your life, if you've grown up like on the streets or whatever, where like Lamborghinis just don't exist, and you have the idea, the dream, like I want a Lamborghini, if you don't think it's possible for you, which is the other part of law of attraction, you have to believe that you can obtain it. And part of how we believe we can obtain it is by surrounding ourselves with it. That's why we make vision boards, so we can literally keep it in our mind's eye all the time and see it, so the brain can actually conceptualize, hey, this is something that I can achieve. This is something that I can receive. The next law, the fifth law, is the law of inspired action. I love this law so much because I'm a projector, holla at human design people. But essentially, inspired action is very different from like making a plan, let's say, unless you have the nudge to make a plan. Inspired action feels like this intuitive little nudge. It's like a whisper of, oh, hey, I want to do this today. And the reason why I love the law of inspired action is because so often, and I'm going to go into a little bit of a balance of masculine and feminine roles right now, but like our own masculine's role is to take action on things. And the masculine energy in general is very action based. It's the doing. The feminine energy is very like receiving based, and it's kind of like that inner compass. It like guides and then it receives. So when I started working with Dr. Tagging, she was explaining the masculine and the feminine to me. She uses this example of a man and a woman in a forest, and there are trees everywhere. You can't see anything. And the woman has the compass, but the man has the machete, right? And so without the compass, like the man's going to be bushwhacking through the forest. It's going to waste all this energy. He's not going to know where he's going. But without the machete, the woman can't go anywhere. So like somebody needs to take action and actually cut down the trees so that she knows where she's going. And so oftentimes, especially for women, but like in general, we are very much so in this day society stuck in our masculine, where we think we have to do, and we don't know how to sit back and receive or sit back and just be anymore. And a lot of this relates to like corporate roles, etc. But like even in my own business, my first 2 years, like I was a mess. Like I was barely surviving. I had like 8 back-to-back calls, and it never felt like enough. And I never had enough money, and it never had enough time, and I never had enough energy. And like that's because I was so in the doing that I wasn't actually in the receiving or the being part of it, which is part of that whole package. So inspired action is very different than just taking action in general. Inspired action looks something like this. So let's say I have a desire this is a good example. I've used this example before, but when I was up for my TED Talk and we were sending out applications everywhere, there was a woman that I hired to actually send applications out for me. Now, this inspired action came from a mentor who gave me the nudge, but I had the nudge in the beginning. So this woman was sending out all these applications for me, and I started to go, maybe she's not writing them properly. Like every application asks for something different. How do I know what she's answering? Like I had a master document, but I didn't know for sure that she was going to be writing the things that I actually cared about or whatever. And so something in me was like, you have to do your own applications, but it's such a fucking pain in the ass. Like I even asked her for the list. I tried and I was like, no, this is like, I'm sorry, but no, it's a no for me. But I did make one application. I wrote one application, and I wrote it as a joke because I didn't think I would get it, because it's an Ivy League school, and they often want PhD teachers or psychologists or like doctors, etc. And so I took inspired action. I filled out that one application, and that is the TED Talk that I actually did at McGill. Inspired action could also look like, I want to learn how to, I want a new job. And so you can go on Indeed and you can like make yourself go crazy applying job after job after job after job. But like, let's say you have this little nudge that's like, hey, like go for a walk. And you're like, no, I can't go for a walk right now because I have to apply for all these jobs. And your body's like, let's just like go for a walk. Let's get some air. You go for a walk with your dog. You're picking up dog poop. You bump into somebody. They're like, oh, haha, so funny. And like, cute dog. And you get into a conversation, and that person owns a business who now gives you a job. It's like, that's where the inspired action is. And that really kind of plays into some of the other, all the universal laws play into each other, but that plays into the universal law of oneness, and also like being in the right place at the right time, right? It's like everything is one, everything is interconnected. There's a 6 degrees of separation at all times. And we have to believe that if we follow our own inspired action, that we are always going to be in alignment and we are always going to get what we want. And so that's why making something like a plan or following the rigidity of like what society is right now often bites us in the ass. We end up working so much harder. We're like going up the hill kicking and screaming rather than like rolling down the hill with like fun and energy, because that option is available. We just aren't confident enough in our own intuitive hits to be able to like take our hands off the steering wheel for a second and like follow that intuition. The sixth law and the final law for this episode, we'll do a part 2 because this is really long. But the sixth law is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. Now, with the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, this law basically states that everything is fluctuating and evolving off of one another. And so it isn't just, something happens and then that's it, it's done. There's this constant give and take, kind of like the law of correspondence, where everything is evolving and we're feeding off of each other. An example of what this would look like is if you hang out with somebody who is very negative, you might start to feel negative yourself. And it's different from the law of correspondence because you might have showed up there really positive, like internally you're like, I'm doing great, life is good, everything's sunny, birds are chirping, clouds are not in the way, the sun is shining. And then you hang out with somebody who's very negative and you fall into that negative spiral. Now that is the transmutation of energy. It's that give and take, it's that evolution, it's the fluctuation of energies interacting with one another. Very similarly, if you hang out with somebody in a high frequency, it can make you higher frequency. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very careful with the people that I spend my time with. Like obviously with my clients, part of what helps them get better is literally by being in my energy. And that sounds extremely vain, and I don't mean it to be, because that is actually what the projector's job is for me to just like really work on my energy constantly, because that's what people are feeding off of. Like that's how I'm helping people. But half of what makes somebody do better or heal or evolve themselves is by borrowing a higher frequency from somebody else and being able to understand what that feels like, the vibration of it. And so this is why the people that I keep around me that I actually get to choose, I'm very, very intentional about. And it sucks because sometimes I have to like end a relationship that I thought was going to be awesome, or you can tell I've just been through a very small breakup, or like, file for divorce, or, break up with friends, or be very cautious in how I spend my energy with people around me. And this is also why I think the term is your vibe is your tribe. So your tribe is your vibe. So your vibration literally is related to the vibration of the tribe, the people that you hang around you. So when I first started building my business, I was in a mastermind with a whole bunch of women who were like multiple 7-figure earners, multiple high 6-figure earners. And at that point I had like just hit six figures. And I was like, I don't even know how I could ever get there. And like, now that we've just hit 7 figures, it's like, oh my God, like part of me even believing that I could achieve that is by spending time with people who also have done that. Because if they can do it, I can do it, because of the universal law of oneness. Right? Okay. So these universal laws are so much fun. And if you're still listening to this, I am releasing a very quick crash course on, it's called Mindful Money, but it's basically like how to make fuck you kind of money. Because honestly, literally, law of universal oneness, if I can do it, a monkey can do it, you can do it. Like truly, it's really not that fucking hard. And there's so much money to go around. And I mean, using the universal laws, using quantum physics, using your own, like you're going through your own healing journey, understanding your own money beliefs, breaking through that, rewiring the subconscious so you are a vibrational match for the type of fuck you money that you literally deserve. That's how we're going to get there. And I'm so excited to offer it to you guys. So if you're still listening to this and you're interested, we'll put a link below. It's going to be the first 4 weeks of September. So I'm doing it on Wednesdays, and it's just going to be a tight little group. And I'm really excited about it because I know it's changed my life and I can't wait for it to change yours. If you guys like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with somebody who might need it. And stay tuned for part 2 of the 12 universal laws. Thanks for coming. Love you guys. Bye.